your background, whatever.
Silver Fox Entertainment, in conjunction with Winsome Source Media and Focus Media, proudly presents S.H.I.N.E Live, the podcast that focuses on supporting, honoring, inspiring, nurturing, elevating, and educating women everywhere. With your S.H.I.N.E Live co-hosts, educator, performing artist, and influencer Sharon Cook, and CEO, entrepreneur, and personal fitness trainer Dawn Cole. This podcast is designed to build a community of sisterhood through dialogue that is transparent, authentic, and informative. And now, your host of S.H.I.N.E Live, Sharon and Dawn.
Yoo-hoo! Hey, you better shine.
It is time to shine. Welcome, everyone.
Yes, welcome. We are so excited about tonight's podcast, and we're for a couple of reasons. One reason is because we're live.
Yay!
We are live. We are coming to you all live today, and that is so exciting. And the second reason is that we are celebrating. Can you say celebrating, Dawn?
Yeah, we can say celebrating.
Okay,
sense, or at least
is it celebrating?
I guess maybe it wouldn't be celebrating, but at least we're celebrating the awareness.
Yes, because this is May is Mental Health Awareness Month. So we're celebrating, as my beautiful co-host put it, the awareness of mental health and how important it is to just make sure that your mental health is in check, just as well as your physical health. Because, you know, Dawn, I believe that everything is tied together. Everything is connected, if you will.
Agree.
And so when your mental health suffers, your physical health suffers. And when your physical health suffers, your mental health suffers as well.
Very true.
So it's just important that we put that piece in place and work on our healing, be a part of the healing journey, be really actively engaged and deliberate about the healing journey for our mental health. So so we're excited about tonight. Yeah.
Today we didn't know this when we planned it.
Oh yeah.
But today is Mental Health Action Day, which is like, hey, we're taking action. We're just right in there, that divine time, that appointment that we didn't even know. So yes.
That's right.
You're on it.
Mental Health Action Day. And so today we are going to be talking about trauma.
Yeah.
In particular, women in trauma, the impact of trauma in the lives of women, and what trauma is, and how you recognize trauma in your own life, that trauma drama, and what you can do to kickstart your healing journey.
Yes.
So we're excited. We've got two special guests.
Yes, we do. We have Dr. Ernestine Duncan. And she is a doctor in psychology. She's going to be joining us. She was our guest before when we talked about boundaries, so we're happy to have her back.
Yeah. I saw her on something else recently in the news too. They had interviewed her on a certain issue that involved mental health not too long ago in the news.
Yeah, she's a busy lady right now. Everybody's calling on her.
Yeah, very much. And our other guest is Ms. Tiffany Hillian, and she is an intensive in-home counselor who has a qualified mental health professional. She's a qualified mental health professional. She is working right now on her dissertation, her doctorate in traumaology, and her specialty is indeed trauma, on the issues that surround trauma. So she's also a licensed professional counselor, and she is a colleague of mine as well. So we are so excited about having her here with us too. So this is going to be very informative. And we want it to be very interactive as well. So we want our listeners out there to please make your comments.
Yes, please do.
Let us know that you're with us, that you're watching. Also, if you have any questions, please feel free to put your questions in the chat. And if you would like to share your own experiences, your own testimony, your own drama story, your own personal path to healing, we are open for you to come on and join us. You can join us live and be a part of the conversation.
Yes.
So we're just looking forward to all of that. Yeah.
And that's what I love about being with S.H.I.N.E, because it's a community, encouraging community, because we grow and we heal through community. I had someone say, I heard a long time ago, and you probably have heard it before too, so you can't control what happens to you, but you can control what happens through you. And this is...
You better say that, girl.
Shine again.
Say that one more time.
You cannot control what happens to you, but you can control what happens through you.
That's right.
So this is an opportunity now to that we're bringing in our professionals to come in and just share and bring insight and encouragement, because it's not a doom and gloom. This is a time to shine so that we can be better for ourselves, better for our community, for those around us. So I'm super excited about getting started with talking about this topic.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, we welcome those of you who are starting to join us. You know, I know sometimes it takes a moment for people to join on in, but we welcome you to not the shade room, but the sun room.
Yes,
the sun room you are entering. Say that again, Dawn.
No shade here, just shine.
Just shine. That's right. That's right. We are all about that community of sisterhood. So come join us in the sunroom, and let's do what we need to do in order to let our sunlight shine on through.
That's right.
So if you're just joining us, we welcome you. We welcome you today. Again, we are going to be discussing the topic of trauma and how it impacts women, and what we can do to start our healing process, and continue on that journey towards healing and wholeness. Trauma, as you may know or you may not know, trauma is indeed a women's health issue.
Yes, it is.
Definitely is. And there are so many things during my time of kind of reading up on trauma and researching this topic. I just did not know the impact that it has on the lives of women. And one of the results of that, and we'll talk more about this as we get into the podcast, is PTSD. And there is a high number of women who suffer from PTSD. And oftentimes we equate that to being a mental health issue that affects men, particularly men who have gone off to war, combat overseas, that sort of thing. But it is much bigger than that. And when we bring on our guests, we bring on Tiffany and Dr. Ernestine, we'll talk more at length about that. But I just wanted to make our viewers aware that this is something that is may not be discussed much, but it impacts so many women.
Yes.
So many.
Yeah, I wouldn't even think about, as you said, like suffering from PTSD, but any type of trauma or grief or depression, even not just depression, which that is another part of the mental health, but when you experience even relationships, and we've been covering relationships issues, toxic relationships, and you can be suffering from post-traumatic stress syndrome and not even know it, and from PTSD. And they found out even through this pandemic, there have been a lot of people, studies have shown just how much that has increased from um, prior to the pandemic, of how much people are suffering from PTSD, just from that, from losing family members, just how quickly this came in and affected our lives. And we're still, and they said it's going to be a long, long effect, a healing process even afterwards. So
Yeah.
this is timely.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And saying that, you know, the I want people to understand, women to understand, that healing is, when you say the word healing process, it is not something that just automatically happens overnight. It's not something that happens just by going to sit down with a therapist for a
Right.
couple of short sessions. You know, the work is ongoing. It's ongoing.
Yes.
It is a process. It is a process. And so you have to give yourself some grace and be patient with yourself as you work through
Mm-hmm.
that process.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I know we all have a story we could share and tell, and we want to hear from you all. If you have something that you want to share with us about um, um, your experiences with traumatic events in your life and how they've impacted you, and um, anything that you might have done that you want to share with us that
Mm-hmm.
has helped you in your healing process, in your ongoing process, please feel free to share with us. We want to hear from you. And again, leave your questions and comments in
Yeah.
the chat. Please do that. Please do that.
I'm
Yeah.
sure the people will really start like responding, especially when we start hearing from Tiffany. Hi, Miss Ray. I think it's Renee. So good. I'm glad that you tuning in with us. We have some really cool people coming in. So why don't we have Miss Tiffany come in and let's
All right.
talk about
Yes.
trauma. Hey,
We
Tiffany.
we welcome Miss Tiffany. Hello.
Hello, everyone. Hello.
Hey,
Hi,
Tiffany, thank you.
Dawn,
We want to begin
Sharon.
by just thanking you for being with us today. We appreciate you
No
taking time out of
problem.
your very busy schedule
Mm-hmm.
to be with us. And if you would take a few minutes to just share with our viewers a little bit about your background and why this work is so important to you.
Okay. Well, I am an educator, and currently, as you indicated, I am a school counselor. And I have, over the years, I have witnessed so many students that are incapable of coming to school to do their schoolwork because they are laden with baggage
Wow.
of their home lives, stuff that happened when they were in elementary school.
Mm,
And a student can't possibly be able to do their schoolwork when they are laden with trauma that they have experienced from their elementary years, middle school years, or just trauma that they're experiencing in the neighborhood. You cannot
Wow.
expect a student to focus on what they're
Mm-hmm.
supposed to be doing in school, what's in front of them, when they have all those other things going on.
yeah.
And I just realized that there's something that needs to be done, that the students need help. And I found myself doing, I'm always doing my school counseling work, but the
Mm-hmm.
needs of the students was so much more than what I could do.
Wow.
Right.
For that reason,
Mm-hmm.
I knew that I needed to go back to school and work on two things. I needed to get a degree in traumatology and also work towards becoming a licensed professional counselor so that I could help students at a different way. I am currently an intensive in-home counselor, which I do help students or teenagers, whatever, elementary school students as they are currently experiencing things. But it is so disheartening to see students come to school and they are experiencing things in their home life and they're dealing with things and they can't cope they can't cope in school because of what they're experiencing at home. And I just wanted to be a part of the solution to help them manage some of the
Mm-hmm.
things that they were experiencing.
Yeah, yeah. You know, that's interesting because and the work that you do is vitally important, because often what happens too is those traumatic events that take place in our childhood, we carry them with us into our adult lives, and then they continue to manifest themselves in various relationships, be it the workplace, you know, with your employers, or your work colleagues, in romantic relationships, if you will, in familial relationships, in your casual relationships. I mean, you just carry that stuff, and then people wonder why they're struggling the way they're struggling. Well, you still got that baggage from your childhood, those traumatic events that impact you in your childhood. You're still carrying that. And
Exactly.
so, yeah, and I know women, and I'm sure there are women out there in their 50s who are still, because I'm part of the 50 Club, and they are still dealing with stuff. Well, they haven't, let me take that back. The trauma that they've experienced in their childhood is still affecting their lives now, and they're wondering why they're not at a certain place in their life, because they have not dealt with that trauma, with those childhood events. They have not dealt with it in in an adequate way or an effective way that helps them to be able to move forward in their lives. So yeah, so that the work you do is vitally important, because if you can get it then when they're kids,
Yeah.
you know, that can really help in the long run as they grow up. So Tiffany, what is trauma?
Okay, I
Let's
was getting ready to
define
go
this thing.
to
How do we
that.
define
So,
it?
how you define trauma? It's very simple. Trauma
Okay.
is directly witnessing or experiencing a traumatic event yourself, witnessing it happening to others. It could be learning of an experience that happened to someone that was close to you or a family member, or it could be the repeated exposure to traumatic events, something that may be a first responder, or it could be, as what you were speaking of, Sharon, what I like to call the layered experience, where you just
Okay.
are continuously exposed to trauma after trauma after trauma. And that is something that sometimes women experience. They're just repeatedly exposed to trauma after trauma. Something may have happened in a woman's childhood, and then another trauma happens in the teenage years, and something else happens in their young adult years. And then by the time they get into their 30s and 40s, all of those traumas have piled on top of each other. Then when they get into their 50s, they're reacting to different things, different ways, and they never had a chance or an opportunity to process all of those traumas because they had piled up on one another. So
Wow.
that, in a nutshell, that is what trauma is.
And I know
Okay.
that when you're saying that these things that pile up on each other, because sometimes people think that they healed from it because they may have transitioned out of it. They may have gotten out of a situation. When people leave in a relationship that is toxic, they get out of the relationship, but they think that they healed basically because they got out of it, rather than that's really when the healing process begins. So, look at this question, Tiffany. How can you bridge the gap to the classroom teacher's understanding of trauma, the trauma the child has experienced, to trying to teach the child?
That's
Okay.
a good question. That's like, it's, to me, what I see in that question is the balancing act. How do you balance understanding the trauma while at the same time continuing to educate the child?
That, for me, that goes back to trauma informed teaching strategies and
Okay.
things of that nature, and just good old-fashioned teacher empathy that is balanced with instruction. Those things have to mirror each other. It has to be together. The teacher empathy is a key piece of it, while also simultaneously balancing the instruction. It's not that you're trying to just forgive the child and not hold the child accountable, but the teacher empathy is vital. The teacher empathy has to be there. The teacher has to understand sometimes the child is just not going to be able to do your work because the child heard bullet shots all last night. The child can't come to your class and do your work. It's just that simple.
Yeah. You know what? I took my granddaughter, my glam daughter, she's 6. I took her to the carnival at Military Circle this weekend. We went Saturday afternoon. We went from about 3 to 6:30. We were there from about 3 to 6:30. And something that I noticed, because I've become so much more sensitive and aware when it comes to this whole topic, when there was a game, one of the little games where you can get the, the big giant stuffed animal, whatever. And I noticed that with this game, you had to pop these balloons or whatever. And every time a balloon popped, people would they would get quiet. It would get quiet. It was like, children were even doing that, ducking. And I said to myself, that's trauma.
Yes.
I was like, wow, look how we, being transparent here, the majority of the patrons there were African Americans. And I just was like, wow, look how we have been impacted by, gunshots, by, shootings, by these, killings and whatever. And it was just really interesting to me to just, take notice to that. I was looking at some kids on a ride and they ducked down.
Wow.
And I was like, it's the balloons over there. It's the balloons. It's okay.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
But at the same time, not surprised just because of where we are right now. It's everywhere.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, Tiffany, when you guys were talking about the children in classrooms too, it's like, how are the families, because healing, a child, if they're still in the family's home, are the parents open? Have they been in a situation where you can speak with the parents and that there can be that healing process to find out that whatever may be going on, that maybe even the parents don't realize that your child is being affected because they're in it too. Everybody's in this whatever situation and not realizing how much it's affecting the other.
That is a very careful conversation because a lot of times the parents are doing the best that they can. And they don't always have the means to just pick up and move. So you have to strategically have the conversation with the parents. The first step is just trying to get some type of counseling for the child, just to try to manage it and try to see if you can maybe get the parent with social services to see if there are some options for the family. But often there is no other recourse because, as I mentioned, it's a resource. It's a financial thing. The parent is doing the best that they can. So they can't just pick up and just simply move to another area because they're doing what they can with what they have. So, it's a very, thank you, Miss Wilson. It's a very touchy subject. And you, as a counselor, you have to navigate that with care. You have to navigate that with care because you do not want to offend a parent. You never want to offend. And I've never had that issue. I've always been able to reach my parents and approach them and never offend, but still convey what I need to convey that's in the best interest of the child.
Wow.
That's good.
Yeah. And I would say too, I was just thinking about the situation that I found myself in as a mother. And there may be some other mothers out there that this may help, some other young mothers. But I remember a traumatic event that took place in my family, which was when my son, who was 14 at the time, he was an eighth grader in middle school, and he was shot while he was on his way to the basketball court to play basketball. He's walking with a friend. He was a victim of a stray bullet in a drive by. This guy jumped out his car and was shooting at another group of kids, and he crossed the street and trying to get away, him and his friend, and the bullet hit the ground and ricocheted, and then it hit him and hit him in his leg. And I just remember, throughout his high school years, I would just like do my own little mental health check-ins, like, how you doing? You okay? Things like that.
Yeah.
Never realizing what that was possibly doing to him or had done to him mentally until his young adult years, when it really manifested itself at the age of 19. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And then realizing, I think he's got PTSD because he doesn't like crowds. He doesn't like small spaces.
Yeah.
When he parks, he backs into a parking space. So he's like, you always got to see, you got to be aware, and all that kind of stuff. And I'm sharing this just to say that to parents too, who are listening, follow if you have children, be aware if your child does go through or witnesses something traumatic. It's so important to get them the help, even though they may seem like they're okay. They ain't okay because that's some real heavy stuff. And I think a lot of times we're conditioned to believe, I know in the African American community, I don't know about other communities out there, but I know that we're conditioned to just, you just keep going.
Yeah.
I know that as women, I will say that. I know that as women, we are also conditioned to believe we just keep going.
Right.
We're tough, we're
the
strong.
issue with women.
Yes. Yeah. And so we neglect to get the kind of help that we really need. So we just kind of cover things up and keep moving, So, yeah.
So that is a great topic too that we're covering right now, which is a good time to even bring on Dr. Duncan, since she has been. I'm glad that she's able to come on. Yes, hey there, Dr. Duncan.
It is her birthday, guys. Just let everybody know out there. So, yeah.
Oh, thank you. Oh my
You're
goodness.
welcome.
Yes, but we're just talking about this with the women. I think this is a great time for you to chime in and just share, you and Tiffany, about just what Sharon was just discussing. And Sharon, continue with that. So Dr. Duncan can comment, because these are your areas too. Your expertise.
Aww. Yeah. Oh, somebody's giving you a birthday shout out.
Yes.
Oh, thank you so much. I think that's okay. To the business at hand. Can you guys hear me okay? Because I know earlier we were having some concerns.
Yeah.
Can see you're just freezing a little bit, but we can hear you.
Yeah. So we are talking about the impact that trauma can have on women, and how do you know if you're repressing something, if you're repressing a childhood traumatic event, or it don't even have to be from your childhood. It could be something that happened to you as a young adult or as a, middle-aged adult. But how do you know if you are repressing trauma? And how can women bounce back from? Yeah.
Well, the important thing to remember is that first, you can bounce back. A lot of times when we have not dealt with something and we've kept it hidden under the rug, it gets bigger and bigger in our minds, and it makes us sometimes feel as though it will never be any different. It will never get any better than this. And many of the things that contribute um, to trauma are things that are not positive, and so we tend to hide them, right? And I'm sure Tiffany has talked about this based on her experience, but the things that contribute to trauma are generally things that have left us feeling vulnerable and unsafe. So it could be that we witnessed something that was really overwhelming to us. I was listening, Sharon, when you talked about your son and the experience that he had and how you saw it began to change his behavior. But the question, as I understand it, how, when you're it, one of the clinical symptoms when people have PTSD, and we want to make the distinction between when people have experienced trauma versus when they meet the diagnostic criteria for post-traumatic stress disorder, right? But some of the symptoms are very similar in that people will begin to have flashbacks of the experience, right? Um, as a disorder, trauma and post-traumatic stress disorder, they fall under the umbrella of anxiety. So people generally be anxious. They may not be able to point a finger at what they're anxious about, but
Mm,
there's just this uneasiness that comes about as a result of how they are. And many times when they don't really have the words to express what they're feeling, it will come off as though they're irritable. And we see irritability or lability in children a lot because they don't have the words. They don't have the language to be able to say, I feel nervous, mommy. I feel anxious. Now, there are some children who do, but many times you'll see emotions manifest themselves through the behavior of children, right? So there's the inability to sleep because you sometimes have these thoughts racing of the trauma that you experienced. Or because the trauma is the result of you not feeling safe, you're constantly looking for ways to feel safe. So, what kinds of things do you need to do? One of the areas that I'm really interested in recently has to do with children who live in neighborhoods where there's lots of violence because that leads to them feeling vulnerable. And a lot of times when they go to school and they're distracted and their behavior is very different than what teachers need it to be, they label that child as having a behavior disorder when often that child is just anxious and has experienced trauma. Trauma might be in their home, there may be domestic violence, there may be some type of abuse happening in the home, whether it be physical, or sexual. And if you just think about that, if that's your reality, doesn't that kind of intrude on your ability to say, what is two plus two? Or
Yes,
can you read
exactly.
this sentence out of the book?
Exactly. What Tiffany was just
So
talking
it
about.
makes
yeah,
Yeah.
right.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So
yeah.
it makes sense that in those things that we look for, the things that kind of tell us something is kind of off. And when we link it, I remember when my was abused by her husband, that is when I started feeling like, we begin to make the connection. And
Yeah.
that's when we then can say, is trauma, I've been traumatized, or people may actually meet the diagnostic criteria for having post-traumatic stress disorder.
Dr. Duncan, I have a question because Norman had posted a question that was pretty interesting. Said, is trauma a natural part of development?
Wow, that is a great question. We would hope not, right?
Yeah.
However, based
Mm-hmm.
on the society that we live in, based on the
Mm-hmm.
society we live in the current times, the issue for me, Tiffany, please chime in. The issue for me is that we experience things and feel we should be able to it off our shoulders. And so we don't categorize it as a trauma, but it really is a trauma, right? So a child could feel unsafe at home, right? And or they may get corporal punishment at home, right? And we think, well, that's the way my mama treated me. That's the way my parents reared me. I got spankings, I got beatings, and I'm just fine. Many times the response to that is, no, you're not. No, you're not.
Right.
So
Yeah.
we minimize the situations that we go through and we think, oh, you'll be okay. Oh, you'll just get over it. When for real, that has embedded itself in the person's heart and in the person's mind, and they need to address it. So, not supposed to be a natural part of development, but often because of the lives that we live and often because of the society that we live in, it is becoming increasingly a part of development.
Dr.
Yeah.
Duncan, I would have to agree with you wholeheartedly because society is changing, and people are going through some heavy things.
Yeah.
And just as you
Heavy thing.
indicated, people are carrying these things that happened to them in childhood, and even some things that happen to them as adults. And it continues to evolve, and horrible things are happening to people. Horrible, horrible things.
Yeah.
I believe everyone that is listening tonight could tell you stories of things that happen to people. And sometimes you just wonder, why are these things happening to some of these people? And they're traumatic events, and it just seems like some people just can't catch a break. And these people have these stories, and they have to have some type of way to deal with it and cope with it. But as you indicated, there is a way out, and they can survive it, but they have to be willing to, as Sharon indicated, do the work. It's not easy work. It is not easy to process the traumas you've experienced. It is not easy, but it's
Yeah.
worthwhile work.
Yeah.
Oh, there's a
Yeah.
good question
Do
from
you have you
Michelle.
guys
I'm sorry. This question says school divisions are becoming more focused on trauma based learning. Are there recommendations of supports that can be offered? Did you see that, Tiffany?
I
And
Yeah.
Dr. Duncan? Yeah.
mhm.
Yes, I did see that. Well, I can say, I will say that they have integrated more counselors, not school counselors per se, what we used to be called guided counselors, but we don't use that term any longer. We're school counselors now. Please don't call us guided counselors. We're school counselors. But they integrated more counselors that kind of work with a target population that are having maybe what you would call like adjustment difficulties, kids that are just kind of going through a lot. They're having trouble getting acclimated to school, and they work with a smaller population of students, maybe students that need more interventions, maybe even more one-on-one counseling than the typical school counselor can provide. And I know for a fact that our school division is planning on hiring more of those so that even more students could be serviced. So I would say, as a trauma specialist that my friend Sharon has titled me, the first step would be to hire more of those individuals to work with students in the building to help students deal with some of those outside issues that they are inevitably bringing into the school. Because at the end of the day, that's not going to change. We're
Right.
not going to see less of that, and especially now with the pandemic and the way
Mhm.
the schools have been operating. The students have been out of school for a year and a half,
Mm-hmm.
and who knows what we're going to be confronted with as counselors when we go back to school in the fall, because these kids have
Right.
had no one to talk to. So
Right.
we're going to need someone to assist with those things.
Mhm. Yeah, I agree. Dr. Duncan,
Some of the
would you add to
recommendation,
that?
yes, yes, some of the recommendations have to do with in the classroom, because that's
Mhm.
usually where these children will manage behavior problems or difficulty in learning.
Uh-huh.
And some of the recommendations include, you know, modeling positive social interactions, because students may be more inclined to act out. And so teachers have to not respond to the acting out, but perhaps trying to understand. And as Tiffany said, with the help of counselors, then you can begin to identify some of the things that are going on. The literature talks a lot about being culturally responsive, right?
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
So teachers having a skill set that allows them to be able to respond to the student in a way
Mhm.
that's culturally appropriate.
Mm-hmm.
Also, they talk about the connections between what the child does in the classroom, making a connection with home.
Yeah.
And sometimes that is difficult because, I have my daughter is a third grade teacher. It's her first year of teaching. And I think because it's her first year, she comes and tells me a lot of her experiences.
Mm-hmm.
And there are many parents who don't want to be involved. It's one more thing that they have to deal with in an
Mhm.
already very busy and an overloaded life.
Mm-hmm.
And so that part is difficult, but it
Mhm.
speaks to how many times I heard Tiffany say this, they don't have anybody to talk to. So sometimes the teacher's role is also to help them to build positive and supportive relationships.
Right.
And so
Right.
those are some of the direct things that teachers can do along with the school counselors to help address these issues, but to not interpret them only or primarily as behavioral
Mhm.
issues or
Mhm.
that big umbrella parachute catch of ADHD.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Many kids who are getting a diagnosis of ADHD, they don't have ADHD. ADHD is a brain
Yeah.
disorder,
Mm.
and you can
Mhm.
see physical evidence of it when you scan the brain. But many
Mhm.
teachers, that's their default. And
Mhm.
I am not
That's true.
pointing a
I've heard of
finger,
that.
nor am I being judgmental
Mhm.
about that. Management is
Mhm.
important for school teachers, but not every
Mhm.
child has ADHD because they're acting.
Right.
Mhm.
I
Wow.
I think sometimes too the you have doctors who are quick to want to diagnose that as well, or you'll have parents that say, "Oh yeah, it's ADHD," but like you said, it goes deeper than that. Yeah. And so we kind of throw that label on there.
Mhm.
So Natalie says the world has experienced the trauma of the pandemic for over a year. Women tend to put family first and not care for self. What advice can you give to women to help self help self over others first? That's that. How do you put on your mask, your oxygen mask first before you
Yes.
can help put it on everybody else? Yeah, 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 yeah. That's a very good question.
Very good
I'm
question.
going to let Dr. Duncan and Tiffany take that, but I want to say this to that. Is oftentimes too, we believe that as women, self care means I'm going to go get my nails done and I'm going to go get a massage. I'm going to get my pedicure. And that's good stuff. I think that's
Mhm.
very good stuff, and you need to do that. But I know one of the best things that I
Mhm.
ever did for myself was therapy.
Yes.
Was to go to a therapist, a licensed therapist, and deal with my own stuff. And it's not easy work because
No.
sometimes I come
It's a
out there
process.
feeling like I don't know. You feel
like you've been filleted.
Yeah, and you feel so and so
Believe and
vulnerable and
biting
open.
twice.
And I remember one time my husband, I don't know if I shared this on the podcast before, but he picked me up from my therapy session, and I got in the car and he was like, "So how was your session?" And I was just like, "Could you just leave me alone for me?"
Yes. But
I am happy. Let me just, because we talked a lot about you.
Right. And it's like having a deep tissue massage. I mean, it's
yes,
great, but it hurts.
Yes.
And, with women, I think about just even what I went through because therapy is, forget that whole folks don't believe in therapy. It is so important because otherwise we're just hitting branches. I just think that we're pulling at leaves and and that's all we're doing and not getting to the root. And therapy will help you get to the root to where you'll know how to care for yourself. You don't have to guess. You really will have specific issues that have been tackled and been identified, and healing process begins because you can care for yourself and get your nails done or spend some time for yourself. But even in that reflecting time, sometimes you find out, man, that got a lot of stuff that's going on. And the best thing you can do for yourself is start therapy. Start that form of healthcare to make sure you're mentally, emotionally, and spiritually one. I remember T.D. Jakes said, "A half a person and a half a person don't make a whole person. They still make a half a person. When two come together, one whole person and another whole person makes one."
Whole person, right?
No, we're half. We cannot be one whole person to anyone if we are not that fixed ourselves.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, that was my soapbox.
Okay. Dr. Duncan or Tiffany, you want to add? Therapy is absolutely needed in our community and for us as women in general. Yes, Heather.
Yes, Heather. Mm-hmm.
Most definitely.
Yes, I agree.
I agree as well.
And make sure you don't get caught in that stigma of I'm less than because I went to go and get therapy.
That's true.
Because that has plagued the African American community. Some still go by that mindset.
Mm-hmm.
And as you indicated, you can't be a half person when your cup is half full. You are no good. You can't live your life like that.
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
And sometimes, even when you think you are okay, you really might not be okay. You might be what is called faking the funk.
Yeah.
That might be true. You might not be okay. You might just be faking the funk. I believe that as women, I believe someone said this, women, we will keep charging ahead, and the whole world will be falling down inside of us. We'll keep going and keep going and keep going, and it won't matter. But you'll reach your breaking point. But before that happens, you take time for yourself and don't get caught up in therapy. African Americans, we don't do that. Minority, we don't need therapy.
That's right, Samantha.
That's right, Samantha. Don't fake the funk. Don't fake the funk. Been there and done that. I remember going into therapy once. I went into therapy session one time and she said, "So how are you, Sharon?" I said, "I'm good." And she said, "Oh, Sharon, you're And after a while, we got to talking and stuff. It was just like the floodgates. And I said, "Oh my gosh, I don't even know where this is coming from." And I'm apologizing. And she's like, "Why are you apologizing?" And I'm like, I don't know, because I'm apologizing because I'm supposed to be, good. Yeah. And another thing I would say too, we already had we did check back in some of our previous podcasts where we talked about setting healthy boundaries. And Dr. Duncan was in on that discussion with us. But that was one thing that I did too. I made sure that I sought counseling to help me with that area of my life. That's some self-care, setting healthy boundaries so that I am not overworked or overdoing or giving, and not taking time for myself. So yeah, Dr. Duncan, you were going to say something.
Well,
I'm happy to
I
see you,
want to.
Melanie.
I wanted to say it's surprising to me. I mean, it's probably going to be surprising to you that I'm going to say this as a clinical psychologist. Therapy is great, right? But I want everybody here to understand that therapy is really like the icing on the cake, right?
Okay.
Because there are some basic things, there are some everyday things, individual women that
Okay.
should, we can do. Here's one of them. Here's one of them. Breathe.
Oh
How
yes.
many
Yes.
of us
That's
really take
simple.
in
Yes.
Shine, Dr. Duncan. Come
You
enough
on.
better shine. Give us the nuggets.
Okay. Okay. So if you pay attention to your breathing, I would then ask on this podcast, not breathing fully. Because when you breathe fully, it goes through your lungs and down into your diaphragm, and your belly gets extended.
Mm,
We like
breathe.
we take just enough oxygen to not pass out. And as a
Right.
result of that, our bodies
Mm-hmm.
are deprived. Right?
Mm-hmm.
But with oxygen, it calms down all of the processes of our bodies. And
Mm-hmm.
anxiety
Mm-hmm.
revs up our endocrine system. It revs up our hormone. Cortisol is pumping through our veins. And we have to engage in behaviors. And many times we don't take the time. Women, and we got to get the kids ready and got to do this for the
Yes.
man, and we got to do this for the church and this for the sorority. Could you
Mm-hmm.
just take 30 minutes in the morning and breathe?
And just
Can you
breathe.
just take 30 minutes at lunchtime and just take a
Mhm.
deep breath before
Wow.
you go to bed in a way
Mm-hmm.
that your body needs, right?
Yeah.
Everybody's on to the craze of mindfulness and yoga, being present in the moment,
Yeah.
taking time to relax our bodies. Those are the things. That's how we get in, right? That is
Yeah.
how we get empowered to be in control
Mm-hmm.
of our own health. I
Yeah.
don't have insurance and I can't go to therapy or on vacation. You need to have ways to calm yourself down.
Yeah.
Another thing we can do is that we could get moving.
Mm-hmm.
It just takes a few minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Step in place. Right? Don't sit at your desk all day.
Mm-hmm.
Go for a walk.
Mm-hmm.
Allow
Mm-hmm.
yourself time to let go of this, to compete with the stress. Exactly. Be present in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
What is
That's
the
good.
aroma in the environment that you're in right now? Do you smell
Yes.
flowers? Do you smell fried chicken? Because we look over those moments.
Yeah. That's
And
true.
these are the things that we could do regardless of our socioeconomic status. These are
Mm-hmm.
the things that we could do regardless of our education level. These are
Yeah.
the things that we can do because we to ourselves.
Yes. Yes.
And I am an advocate of therapy. I am an advocate of therapy. I think people should go to therapy. But
Mm-hmm.
before, even when you go to therapy, breathe, meditate,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's
because
good.
those are things you could do at your convenience, when it
Mm-hmm.
fits for you.
Yes, yes,
I,
yes. That is an awesome tip.
yeah.
Um,
Hey, Sharon, why don't we just see if someone wants to come into the sunroom with us and give a comment or ask a
yes.
question?
Anybody feel like coming into the sunroom? You want to share anything, any experience or anything that you've done to help you in dealing with trauma? Yeah.
Double click on the link. Should be a link there, and just go double click, and you'll be able to come backstage and into the sunroom. We'd love to hear from you. Here's some wonderful comments, and just share with me share with us some of your experiences, or you have a question for Tiffany or Dr. Duncan. Just please, we would love to hear from you and just let you shine.
Yeah,
don't be scared.
When I feel anxious too, I have to ground myself, and like Dr. Duncan said, I have to do things like, okay, what do I hear? What do I smell? What do I see? You know, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And just taking time to prayer and meditation, taking a leisure walk through nature, praying, putting on your favorite music, listening to, you know, anything that kind of just grounds you and calms you is some self-care things that you could do. Yeah, exactly. And a lot of times too, you've got apps on your phone that, like the Calm app.
Yeah.
Which does a thing with the breathing, you know, taking a few minutes or sometimes your Apple Watch will let you know you need to take a breath or you need to stand. My watch tells me if I need to stand up if I've been sitting too long. Yeah.
And I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I was going to say this. I had a technical difficulty. I don't know if this was mentioned. And sometimes part of self-care can be staying off of social media for a period of time, because I've had to do that a couple of times, especially recently, just disengaging, just not being bothered with it, or even the news, because sometimes it's just too overwhelming and it's just too much, and you have to just take a break from it because it just wears you down. So it's okay if you have to do that. It's okay, because that's a good practice to have as part of your own self-care regimen. At the end of the day, you have to do what works for you. You have to do what works for you.
Yeah.
Okay,
Samantha says, I love
Tiffany,
the Calm
I'm gonna date.
Go ahead. Date yourself.
I was just gonna say, I'm gonna date myself based on what Tiffany was saying. You guys know I'm celebrating a birthday, and it's a milestone one. But Tiffany, you're probably too young to remember when TV stations used to go off.
Yes.
At a certain time at night. Right? It was, and what that really tells me is that we don't need to be on 24 hours a day.
That is true.
We really don't need to see all the trauma. We don't need to see all the trauma that's, you know, on TV right now. We don't need to see all that's happening on media. But sometimes we just need to completely detach. And before, people used to do it for, you know, I even laugh about when I was growing up, if you got a phone call on your landline, because you didn't have cell, if you got a phone call on your landline after like 11 o'clock at night, somebody was dead, because you didn't make phone calls after 11 o'clock.
That's right.
The phones were like, you don't. But now it's nothing for us to get a call at 11 at night. I know people who speak with the phone in their bed because they don't want to miss a text. They don't. At 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, you waking up because your phone is buzzing. Our bodies weren't made for that. Our bodies were not made for that. Our bodies were made to have rest.
Yes.
And sometimes you're vulnerable. We're vulnerable to trauma. We're vulnerable to misperceiving things because our bodies are on empty. Our bodies are on empty, and they respond in a heightened way.
Yeah.
So, you know, get off the phone, get off the TV, get off social media. I agree.
Yeah. I think one of our viewers, I think it was Samantha, said she likes the Calm app. She goes to sleep listening to, what'd she say, rain and crickets? The sound of rain and crickets. I do that. I play the rain, thunderstorm.
I like the beach.
The beach, the ocean.
Yeah.
And I even have, sometimes I listen to scripture meditations. Somebody's voice is very calm. Yeah. And they're just saying these different scriptures. Yeah. Yeah. So please continue to, Julie Cook says, please continue to share this message and facilitate this discussion. Everybody needs to hear this. Trauma has caused many to lose their shine. Woo.
That is true. That's good.
That's true.
That
is
good,
true.
Mr. Cook. We're trying to bring that shine back. That's right.
Bringing the shine back.
And Dr. Duncan and Tiffany gave us some good points on Mental Health Action Day by breathing, taking some time, unhook from social media, just kind of disconnect for a moment. We have so much coming at us in so many different directions. And I feel like women, because we are designed to be receivers.
Yeah.
And it's like we're receiving, it's like all this information we're receiving, and sometimes we have to feel like we're having to respond, and there's pressure for us to respond. And just on top of everything else that someone has not healed from their past hurts or issues that they've been facing, trauma, and still trying, and like we do so well, we fake the funk and we function although there's dysfunction.
Yeah.
It's like that we're so accustomed to dysfunction.
Yeah. We dysfunction. Yes.
Yes. And then I've known for some of us that when there's healing or there's peace, we don't even know how to act around peace. We don't know how to be quiet. It's just like spending quiet time with the Lord. It's like we're talking and praying and asking and requesting and declaring and shouting and
instead
of being quiet,
and just soaking.
Yes, there's an important part of soaking so that you can hear the whispers that have peace, that covers you with peace. And we just need to stop for a moment. And we're not going to fall apart and melt and and fall over. It's a time to heal and take action.
Yes. Awesome. Yeah. Well, I think that are we on our time? We are on our time, aren't we?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, ladies, such an awesome discussion. My goodness, we could just keep going.
Yes. Dr. Duncan, Tiffany, you guys have been just so wonderful, and just loving how it's just been so easy to talk to you. And I hope, and I know, not that I hope, I know that so many of the listen and will be listening will benefit from this. So thank you, Cheyenne. Is it Cheyenne? Is that how you pronounce it? Thank you, ladies, for joining the S.H.I.N.E, as I call it, the S.H.I.N.E network of women coming as a community, just so that all my cousin is saying hello, just so that we can be encouragement for each other, because we are powerful when we are together, especially.
That's right.
To make a difference. And the strength, we are the strength a lot of times in the household. That's why we fake the funk, because everything is coming on us, but we are powerful, strong women. And what better way to shine if we can shine together?
That's right. Thank you all so much. This has been S.H.I.N.E Live, and we're so grateful for all of our listeners and our viewers out there for just taking time out to join us. And please don't forget that if you are in need of some help, we always like to leave you with this, that there is help out there, and that you are not alone. And we are a community of sisters, and all you got to do is just reach out. And if you need someone immediately to talk to, you can always call 1-800-273-8255. That is the suicide prevention lifeline. There is also NAMI, the National Alliance on Mental Illness. They have a helpline, and that helpline is 1-800-950-6264. Again, that's 1-800-950-6264. And they have different chapters and organizations all across the country. to help those who are in need of help. This has been Shine Live
And I
with
want
your.
to do something really quick because I want to
Oh,
plug
go ahead,
in who we
honey.
have. We have Dr. Duncan, who is a life coach. So
Oh,
if
yeah, yeah,
those of
yeah.
you that want to get in touch with Dr. Duncan to be as a life coach, please, you can let us know, and we will just forward the information to Dr. Duncan so that you guys can connect. So that's another point of contact that you can have if you want something local, and that you are someone that you can connect with. It doesn't have to be local. We're all virtual. You can be everywhere.
And if you have any additional questions about trauma in children, the impact of trauma on children, and need a resource or someone who can point you to that direction, you can always reach out to Tiffany Hillian. I'm putting her shine
Right.
on out there.
Mm-hmm.
So you just let us know at Shine Live, and we'll know how to get you in contact with these individuals, with these beautiful, shining women. And so, with that said, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
Dawn,
If
this
you
has been Shine Live. You
shine
can catch
light.
us on Spotify, on Amazon Podcasts, on Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, and Stitcher. Please check us out. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter, and on
Mm-hmm.
iHeartRadio. We would love to hear from you. And you can also watch this particular podcast again. It will be available to you on our Facebook page, right?
Mm-hmm. And
All right,
YouTube.
just
And
making
on
sure.
YouTube.
And on YouTube, thank
Yes.
you. Or
So
iTunes or YouTube.
on YouTube. So the
Okay,
live,
YouTube.
this video, you can actually watch it on Facebook and YouTube, but then listen to the podcast in another week. So it's going to also be a podcast. Yay. We keep
Yay.
that podcast running.
Exactly, exactly. Yes, we would love to hear from you. Tell us what any of your topics or ideas that you would like for us to discuss. We want to hear from you. We appreciate you all so much and appreciate your
Yes.
support. And as always, we ain't giving no shade. We ain't
Only
throwing
shine.
no shade.
That's right.
Just shine. So you better shine,
You
girl.
better shine,
You better
ladies.
shine. We'll see you all soon. Until then,
Yes.
take care. Light
Take
and love.
care. Take care of yourself.